these years. I've had also like first graders and second graders, but it's been a number of years since I've had the third through fifth. So I'm assuming that I'll continue, but I don't know. Um, I'm working part-time at home and part-time at the hospital, and um, I think it's making more sense and it's getting a little bit easier. I'm an extrovert, and being in the house all this time, and plus I was sick, I discovered that I can go both ways. I have loved being in the house. I kind of asked the question of myself a couple months ago about what it would be like to be retired, and I didn't realize how I make my own happiness, and I never really relied on anybody else for that. And so that was a very big surprise for me. For the summertime, I really planned on making a couple of trips. I have an adopted daughter whose husband died a couple of months ago, 2 months ago, and I haven't seen her in years and years and years. And not a legally adopted daughter, but somebody I just took into my house. And so I was hoping to see her because of what happened with her, but we had to cancel the trip initially. And then I have also a soul sister that in Cleveland, and I really, really would like to go. And that trip was also canceled. And so it's just hard to plan anything. It really is. My biggest concern is I have a son who is not doing well and hasn't been doing well for a long time. And the plan was that he was going to come for the summer. And finally he agreed to it after 2 years of arguing. And so now I don't know if there's going to be a summer for any of us. And summer is so much easier, and it's such a more easy to have fun and so on. So I think I'm just going with the program, and I'm not thinking about what I'll miss or what I won't miss, because it's just too hard. I know that my rabbinic organization canceled their January, can you imagine, January 2001 conference, which is something that I look forward to every single year, and I've not missed any in ever. And so I haven't really thought about that, but that was a really big one because I get to see people from all over the world, and we study together. And it's also in Colorado, in the mountains, and so I think right now I'm just grateful. I was really sick. Yesterday I went to get tested, and then today I got another test just to see, I don't know how this all works and what this means in the fall. So right now I think I'm in a place of I'm just grateful, and I'm just grateful, and we're versatile. All of us are versatile, and we heal in magical ways, and we support each other in magical ways. And I'm just delighted and amazed that we can go both ways. We can go any way that we need to go in order to thrive and live.
Thanks, Aggie. Phil?
Oh, hi. Good evening, everyone. I do not know what my teaching plans are for the fall. This summer, I'll be around the house, do yard work for summer employment, and I'm supposed to go out to a property out in Waukesha County tomorrow. Otherwise, I'll be around. Stephanie and I are going to celebrate our 30th wedding anniversary in one form or another in August 5th. So that's
Mazel
something
tov.
that we thank you. Like many people, where we were, to say the two words "supposed to." We were supposed to go do something very special, and we'll perhaps not travel and do something very special. We'll make it very special, right around here. So I don't think my life is going to change much over the next 3-4 months. But I'm very glad to be here this evening with you all.
Glad you're here, Phil.
Yeah.
Diane?
Well, as you guys heard, Interlochen has we've not closed. We just have postponed for summer. So this would have been my 10th summer there. So it'll be
Where?
weird being home.
Where?
Camp Interlochen,
Okay.
JCC. I worked there in the summer. I worked at another Jewish camp before Interlochen for 4 years, 5 years on the East Coast. So I've been a overnight camp person for a long time. So it's going to be different. I mean, I was home for a few years when the kids were little. So that'll be different. And I've already committed to tutoring one of my students that I've been working with this semester via Zoom. I told the family I would commit to at least 1 day a week once school gets out. So no matter what, because I've seen him grow so much in his reading, which is amazing. Besides that, I don't know. I'm going to be celebrating my husband and I 25th anniversary this summer, and don't know what, we were going to try to go away for a few days, doubt it. So we'll see. I don't know. And then I don't know what I'm teaching in the fall at all right now. So a lot of up in the airs.
I'm right between you two. We'll be 28 years this summer.
See, Mazel tov. Wait, what month for you?
August.
August for us too.
Oh,
It's a good month for weddings.
mazel tov.
Yeah.
All right.
August
Aaron.
9th.
August.
August 9th, 11
There you go.
years.
That's
We're
funny.
used to it though. We've had a Tisha B'Av or two. We've improvised most of the time. I have no idea what I'm going to be doing in the fall. I've just started I just started before the coronavirus, a few months before I started a new job, and I'm still there, but it's not quite the same as what we arranged it to be. So we'll see, how that pans out over the next few months. But I'm working hard, and I have not decided yet whether or not I'm going to teach next year, but I always end up teaching, so I don't see how I don't, but things happen, and I don't know what my wife is going to do either. So we're just sort of playing that by ear. The summer, I can't wait for the weather to be warm and for the kids to be able to go outside, even if they can't do zoo camp or Audubon Society or, some of the stuff that they're used to doing, to interact, they can at least be outdoors. Yadai and I have, and the family have already taken advantage of some of the nice weather we've already had, not this week, but, previous weeks. But it's you just got to be happy to be healthy, and I think it's hard to understand. I think the hardest thing right now is to understand other people's reality, because everybody has their own reality, even if everyday life was normal. But like now everybody's at home, and people are just I don't want to impose on anybody, and I don't want to intrude on anybody, and I don't want to and it's hard to know where pride, what certain things are not as clearly defined in this time. And I think that's as it goes longer and longer, it gets harder to define, not easier. And I think that's what makes it sort of and week to week, it'll be hard to sleep one week, and then I'll sleep like a baby the next week. It's like and I'll feel like, oh well, I have, usually I have so many responsibilities, and now it's not like I don't have the same responsibilities, but it's like, oh, they extended taxes for 2 months. So does that mean I can be lazy, or does that just mean, I just don't, so I'm just doing my best to adapt. I think I think the two things that are very essential for a good word for right now is to be able to adapt and to be able to have perspective and to understand that other people are doing much worse than you,
Yes.
and that, you know, you have to take a deep breath because things might seem to suck, but they suck a lot worse for people who are actually suffering from this disease and people who are on the front lines of this disease. And you know, I just think we have to thank God and thank the people out there that are defending our lives, basically. And you know, just continue to be and try to be happy to the people that you interact with on a daily basis, you know, if you can.
Sure. Thank you.
I gotta say, Erin, to go along with that, sorry, Sippy, I just have to add this. One of the teachers I work with, like right next to me, we share cubby spaces as special ed teachers. He got diagnosed with corona this weekend. 28 years old, male, Caucasian. He's like, hasn't gone anywhere. His wife has. She's the one still working out of the house. I mean, because we're all working via Zoom and everything else. But he got it. He said he had a low-grade fever beginning of last week, and he kept complaining to his wife, and she said, "Suck it up, Buttercup. You used to have allergies or cold." And he's like, "Yeah, you're right." And then he lost his sense of smell. So he called, and he got the preliminary test on the phone, and they test him, and he came out positive. So, and that's what made him, he's like, I had low-grade fever, and I just wasn't feeling great. He said he just kept his allergies. So like, but I'm like, wow, like when you hear it hit to somebody, I worked with him for like all school year. So you just don't know who it's going to hit and not hit. So,
all right.
anyways.
Well, Erin, your comment about perspective is going to be really a good segue into our topic tonight, which is Chavruta. And we've been doing Chavruta study together from the very beginning, but we're going to talk more in depth about the process, both in terms of our own learning and how we teach others. Now, originally, I thought we'd do some breakout Chavruta. I think maybe if it ends up just being the 5 of us, maybe we'll just do it together, but we'll see as we go. So I wanted to start by talking about Pardes. Have you guys heard of Pardes before? I mean,
Yes.
Pardes, first of all, there's like a great school called Pardes.
Yes.
But
Yeah, my
Pardes
brother-in-law
is
just graduated.
great. But Pardes is also an acronym. It's an acronym for Pshat, Remez, Drash, and Sod. Diane, if you remember the old Beit Midrash at MJDS when it was downstairs, do you remember that?
Oh, yes.
And they had that huge arc that was all the way across the wall, and it had
Yes.
stained glass windows. It had
Yes.
these words in it. It had Pshat, Remez, Drash, and Sod.
I totally remember that now.
It's still there. It's now in the Hillel Beit Midrash. But
Oh.
so it's saying that there are 4 levels in which you can study any Torah text. Who did we just lose? We just lost Aaron. Aaron, you still there? We lost him. Hopefully he'll come back. Okay. So 4 levels on which you can study any Torah text. Pshat means the simple, basic meaning of the text, right? If it says that Abraham was 99 years old, it means he was 99 years old. It doesn't mean he was 9 years old or 999 years old. It's the simple meaning. The remez means hint. So it's what the text is hinting at, but maybe it doesn't say it exactly. You're sort of reading between the lines. Drash is the interpretation. That's for instance, what the rabbis tell us, right? It says, V'ahavta l'orecha kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself. And then Rabbi Hillel's interpretation of that is what is hateful to you, don't do to another person. That's the drash. That's interpretation, whether it's a rabbinic drash from a long time ago or it's a modern drash. And then the sod is the hidden meaning in the text, right? So for example, if you look at gematria, right? If you look at the numeric, Aaron's gone back. You look at the numeric value of a word and what does that mean, right? Or you look at, what's the first letter of the whole Torah? Come on, guys. First letter of the Torah?
Bet.
Oh,
Bet. And what's the very last letter of the Torah?
Alamed.
Alamed. So if you read it backwards from the end to the beginning, you have the word lev, right? Because
Gotcha.
you have to read the Torah with heart. That's the kind of thing that's sod, right? It's the hidden meaning that we can dig deep and interpret. Sometimes when you're studying Torah, you want to look at pshat level. You want to look at the basic meaning. Sometimes you're looking for the sod and somewhere in between. You don't always have to go through them in order, and I don't think it necessarily is depending on age, right? It's not that you only look at Pshat with younger kids and you only look at Sod with, older kids. I think that there are different levels we read Torah on all the time. I've heard from Nicolay English teachers on several occasions that the kids coming out of day schools are the best kids in lit classes because they know how to do this. They know how to read between the lines. They know how to look in the hitting meaning in text. They're really prepared for studying literature when they get older because of their experiencing with Pardes, with studying Torah. Questions, comments?
I'll be right back. Hang on.
Okay. Okay. Let's see if the slide will move.
Close the door.
All right. Some questions to ask ourselves before we teach text. Okay, not text, these are not this, some of these questions maybe you'd also ask yourself before studying text, but these are specifically before teaching text. I'm gonna try and move, your pictures, that's better. Okay, so first you start with the Pshat, right? What does the actual text mean? You probably wanna know the simple meaning before you go on. Then what else could it mean? Right? Maybe it doesn't mean what I think it means. And this can be a challenge when you're studying a text that you've studied 1,000,000 times before, and you know all the commentaries and you know all the interpretations. You want to go to the meaning you've already learned. But to try and open yourself up to what different meanings it can have is a really important thing to do. How can it be interpreted and understood? What's the drash? What background knowledge and prior information should I have that I should provide for the students? What do I need to tell them about this text? If they're studying the binding of Isaac, what do they need to know about Abraham and Yitzchak beforehand that happened before, they got to the mountain? What guiding questions for Chavruta might be helpful in the the student's development of compelling interpretations? Okay, what questions can we give to the Chavruta partners that's going to help them? And you've seen that when you guys have studied in Chavruta, I've always given you questions. What guiding questions for Chavruta learning might help the students personally engage with the ideas from the text and each other? And what are the goals of the time allotted to Chavruta learning in the larger picture of the lesson? Why are you studying Chavruta? Sometimes it's just to get the Pshat basic meaning. Sometimes it's that you really want them to come up with their own drash, their own midrash. There are lots of different reasons. Sometimes it might be to see if they see a connection to something else in their lives or something else they've studied. If you understand the goals of why you're giving the Chavruta study, you're going to be able to guide it better. Questions, comments?
No.
Okay. All right. So these are questions for you. Why do you think Chavruta is important? And what have you gained for Chavruta study, right? This is what, our 5th session together? Our 4th session together. So you've already studied the Chavruta together 3 times. I'm sure maybe you've studied, maybe not, you studied Chavruta other times. What have you gained from it, and why do you think it's important?
Struggle with others. It's good to hear others' opinions. I may come from this side and they may come from a totally different perspective depending on their life experience, their age.
Terrific.
You push each other out of your comfort zone, which I think is just like Aggie's saying, but I also think like not even your experiences, but like you might even say, read something and interpret it one way, and then you can take the whole thing and change the other person's opinion, the other person's thoughts. So you can just bring it from different perspectives.
Great. And we're going to talk a lot about what that relationship is like with your Chavruta and what responsibilities we have to each other.
And I know that what I've gained from Chavruta study is more synapses in my brain. I mean, anytime you're as Aggie was saying, you're challenged, you're bonding, you get an opportunity to think, there's new vocabulary. And so I'm hopeful that there's at least a few more synapses than there were before.
Terrific. Definitely mentally challenging and stimulating. Aaron, what do you think?
I think, Chavruta is about moments. You get moments with people, and you have to embrace those moments. You know, you're especially if you do chavruta like more than, you know, we're doing some you know, we're doing chavruta here, but if you do a regular chavruta with somebody, sometimes it gets pretty intense, and you have to like learn, you know, you learn a lot through sort of embracing another one's thought processes and you know, ways of you know, considering a topic.
Terrific. Thank you. So I want to do something a little different tonight, because usually the chavruta we've been doing together has been really deep intellectual reading, close reading of text. But I wanted to show you an example of how you can do chavruta with little kids, with pre-readers. So this is something different. All right, I want to make sure that you guys can hear the video when I share it. Share computer sound, okay. All right, just when it starts, give me a thumbs up if you can hear it.
And on the one hand, I'm committed to teaching the text. On the other hand, these kids are not reading. If they are reading in English, they're certainly not reading well in Hebrew. And even if they're reading in English, they're not reading at this level. Within my classroom, I've got a wide range of abilities and learning styles. And so I also am committed to using lots of different learning modalities. And in some ways, I think we've heard earlier today that that doesn't fit exactly with the traditional way of studying Torah, which is basically language-based. Yet at the same time, I want to say with all these challenges that I also have found over the years that little kids have incredibly deep, big ideas and questions about God. And I am definitely in the group of people who Sharon referred to earlier, of people who are really fascinated by what first graders have to say about Torah. The other piece of context that I think is important is just to say that I teach Torah in the context of Parshat HaShavua. There are a few things about the fact that that I teach it as Parshat HaShavua that are important. One is that we have a consistent routine. This is a weekly routine. Twice a week, when there aren't snowstorms and blizzards and things, twice a week we look at the same parasha. And the kids have a definite familiarity. We've been doing this since Parshat Breshit, so they're familiar with the sort of big picture of the narratives up to this point. But I think also it's important that we link the study of Torah to our tefillot. So there's this sort of this background sense of Kedusha, that this text is not just another piece of literature, but that we treat it somewhat differently. The other thing about Parshat HaShavua is this tension. On the one hand, it's great, we get to be connected to the whole community of the Jewish people. We're all reading the same parsha at the same time. On the other hand, of course, that means that you get this great important text like standing at Har Sinai, and you still only have a week to teach it. You can't let it spill over into other weeks. But the flip side of that is they did it last year, they'll learn it again next year, and hopefully this will be a lifelong thing that they'll be approaching. So it's hard to sometimes keep that in mind when you want to squeeze it all in there, but it's useful.
So the idea that we can study text with little kids, and we're going to look at this in a minute. So we're going to look, trying to see what order I have this in. We're going to see a little more video with her. We're going to see her in action. She takes 4 steps when she, hold on, I'm sorry. She does 4 steps when she does text study. She tells the story, that's instead of the reading the text. Then she has the kids act out the story. So they act out what they're learning about. And then they do some Torah talk, okay? She said that she does this every week the same way, so they know what's coming. So that after they've heard the story, the kids can either make a comment, ask a question, say one thing I remember, one thing I like, or ask questions. And then when she's done, she has them write or draw in a Torah journal. So this is what she does every single week with Parshat HaShavua. And you can see that all of these are things that like 3- and 4-year-olds can do without a problem. That this is right on their level. So we're going to see another video of her, and we're going to see the part 3 in action. But I wanted us to try the acting out part a little bit, which certainly would be easier if we were in person. So we're going to have to be a little creative. We're going to read the text, and then I think maybe we'll talk, well, either I'll have you guys do some acting, or we'll talk about how we would act it out. Who would like to read?
I'll read.
Thank you.
On the third new moon after the Israelites had gone forth from the land of Egypt, on that very day they entered the wilderness of Sinai, having journeyed. I can't get this thing off the top of my screen. Have journeyed from Rephidim. They entered the wilderness of Sinai and encamped in the wilderness. Israel encamped there in front of the mountain. And Moses went up to God. The Lord called to him from the mountain, saying, "Thus shall you say to the house of Jacob, and declare to the children of Israel, you have seen what I did to the Egyptians, how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to me. Now then, if you will obey me faithfully and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among all the peoples. Indeed, all the earth is mine, but you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak. These are the words that you shall speak to the children of Israel." Moses came and summoned the elders of the people and put before them all that the Lord had commanded him. All the people answered as one, saying, "All that the Lord has spoken we will do." And Moses brought back the people's words to the Lord. And the Lord said to Moses, "I will come to you in a thick cloud, in order that the people may hear when I speak with you, and so trust you ever after." Then Moses reported the people's words to the Lord.
Okay. Who wants to read the next one?
And the Lord said to Moses, "Go to the people and warn them to stay pure today and tomorrow. Let them wash their clothes. Let them be ready for the third day. For on the third day the Lord will come down in the sight of all the people on Mount Sinai. You shall set bounds for the people around, saying, beware of going up the mountain or touching the border of it. Whoever touches the mountain shall be put to death. No hand shall touch him, but he shall be either stoned or shot. Beast or man, he shall not live. When the ram's horn sounds a long blast, they may go up on the mountain." Moses came down from the mountain to the people and warned the people to stay pure, and they washed their clothes. And he said to the people, "Be ready for the third day. Do not go near a woman." On the third day, as morning dawned, there was thunder and lightning, and a dense cloud upon the mountain, and a very loud blast of the horn. And all the people who were in the camp trembled. Moses led the people out of the camp toward God, and they took their places at the foot of the mountain. Now Mount Sinai was all in smoke, for the Lord had come down upon it in fire. The smoke rose like the smoke of a kiln, and the whole mountain trembled violently. The blare of the horn grew louder and louder. As Moses spoke, God answered him in thunder. There's something there, but
The Lord came, hold on.
Wait, something just happened over there now.
It's weird to the
That's what
text.
happened
The
to
Lord
me.
came down on the Mount Sinai, on top of the mountain, and the Lord called, and that's all I got.
The Lord called Moses to the top of the mountain, and Moses went up. All right, I'm gonna stop share for a minute.
no. All
We
right.
can see each
Moses
other.
went up.
All right, so who wants to show me what you think that Moses would have looked like when he's up on Mount Sinai and God calls out to him and speaks to him? Who can show me what Moshe looks like?
Somebody trembling and fearful.
Trembling, fearful. Excellent, Aggie, I love that. All right. All right, show me what you think. Show me the people getting ready. Show me them washing and getting clean clothes on and getting ready for Mount Sinai.
So they're wringing out their stuff and
Yep.
hanging it up and
Drying
putting
off.
it on and washing their face, combing their hair.
All right. Show me the reaction of the Israelites when the thunder, and lightning and the clouds appeared.
Fall down.
Excellent. And when the smoke rose like a kiln and the whole mountain trembled and the blare of the horn grew louder and louder. Now show me the people. All right.
I was there.
There. So you can imagine that if we were, in person, first of all, this would be better. And we could get up and we could be moving around and hearing the whole thing. And you can imagine this with preschoolers. Can you imagine how this would go? All right, so now we're going to take a look at the second half of this. We're going to look at it's the same teacher. We're going to see a little demonstration. Different parsha than what we just read.
Why did the Israel, the people that went across the sea, some people might be behind, so they.
Sorry, just to review, this is when they're going around and saying either a comment, thing I remember, one thing I like, or asking a question. You'll see they're passing a little stick around, the talking stick. Oh, that was not right. Sorry.
Why did the Israel, the people that went across the sea, some people might be behind, so they could have died with the Egyptians and
So you're wondering if God made sure that all of Bnei Israel got through before the water closed up? When it's your turn, you can answer it.
Why didn't God just say, if you put your stick in the water, then you could drink the water? And then you could it'd be fresh water. I think that God made the part where the Egyptians were collapse first, and then the other side to make sure all the Jews were out. And
that was an answer to Adi's question?
Yeah. I didn't, what's your name again? Miriam. Why did all the girls sing one song and all the boys and girls sing another song?
Interesting question. Think about that one.
I like when the Jews got across because so they wouldn't die.
Really interesting, Jared.
Why do the bad guys try to chase the good guys? I haven't answered that.
Oh,
me too.
Jonah, you want to know why the Egyptians tried to chase Bnei Israel?
Yeah. I know the answer.
Jared, what answer were you going to give Jonah?
That they wanted them to be slaves. Because then the Egyptians had to do the work.
Jacob, are you ready now?
Like when the Egyptians died.
Why did you like that, Jacob?
Because the Egyptians were bad. Good to
Natalie, it's your turn.
It's bad.
Really loud, Natalie. I don't want to be able to hear you today.
I have an answer to these questions.
Oh, good.
God knows if all of Bnei Israel is there. He knew if they were on the other side or all of them were on that side. So he knew that none of the Bnei Israel were in there, so he shut it. But someone might be like behind a bush or somewhere. There is no bushes in there. But God can see everything.
Listen to what Natalie thinks.
God can see everything. Yeah.
Interesting.
And so he can see behind a bush. He can see in a bush. He can even see what's inside paper. He can even see what's inside paper.
All right. That's an interesting idea about that, Natalie. Let's see what Sam says.
To Jonah and the D.
Okay.
Part 1 is slaves because he just liked them doing all the work that all the Egyptians had to do when. So then he wanted them back. And I have an answer to a D.
Okay.
A D. Maybe he knew. Maybe he waited until everyone came. Went all across. Then, when he knew that they were, when he knew that when Paro and his army was near, he shut it. So then everyone would be safe. All
Binah Israel.
All Binah Israel, and then the Egyptians wouldn't be.
Thank you, Sam.
I like when the Jews came
Came across the sea. What did you like about that, Ariel?
Because they were free.
Very nice.
Why did every single Egyptian go through, or did just the adults?
Well, let's think about what we know from the story, Sam. Which part of the Egyptians was there? Was it everyone?
Yeah. Because the baby. What about the mother?
Who did Paro tell to chase after the nation? His army. So do you think there would be children in the army?
No. But they might.
That's a good question.
They might be girls.
But there could only be adults in the army.
I like when the Egyptians went across the sea.
Why did you like that?
Because I thought it was, and my mother thought it was really cool to see them just
So you could imagine it, picture in your mind? Nice.
All right, so what did you notice?
I noticed that she questioned them more, to think more, to dig deeper to whatever most of their thoughts were.
Good. What else did you notice?
I noticed that, with kids, a lot of kids this young, it's very emotionally based learning or emotionally based teaching. I don't know if that's like there's an actual thing like that, but it seems like
Give me an example of how you saw that.
well, like they're almost like asking them how they feel or how they would feel. I don't know. I can't give you a specific example, but like if they were the patriarch or the matriarch, they put them in like this empathetic place and try to say, like, so they were describing in their funny kid, like a children way, like how they would feel basically.
Great. What else did you notice?
The students were pretty engaged. I mean, they went from student to student, and they all had something wonderful to contribute. It's a little hard to tell how much engagement there was once they were done with their turn. But when a student says, "Well, I have an answer," that shows you that they're maintaining their thought process long enough to respond to a student who had given a response some time before that.
And you can tell what she had said earlier in that little speech, that they clearly have been practicing this every week. This is a pattern. They know what to do. They know what's coming, so that they're ready for it. Good.
It was fascinating that no one was out of turn, like doing something irritating or saying something silly or not playing along. Everybody knew what to do. And I was blown away by, one after the other, they were participating. That doesn't happen with adults.
The other thing that strikes me when I watch this every time is the restraint the teacher has by not answering their questions. It's very hard when a student asks a question to not give an answer, and she doesn't. And she lets the other kids answer their questions, or she asks them more questions, but she doesn't answer them, which I think is amazing and impressive. and not easy to do. All right, so we talked about for little kids. Now we're going to move on to a little more adult. And this is going to take us a little bit on the lines of what we were doing last time with the attuned listening. I'm going to try and move this so I can see you guys and the words, but it doesn't seem to be cooperating. All right. So there are different kinds of questions, right? You can ask informative questions. What color was Moses's shirt? You can ask rhetorical questions when you're not looking for anybody to answer you, right? Moses was a great man, right? And then there are open-ended questions. And you know that when we've done Chavruta before, I've really encouraged you to ask each other open-ended questions, right? That gives a chance for interpretation and gives people a chance to really think, not just one interpretation. So here are some common conversational patterns. And this is really interesting. You'll have to tell me if you've related to this. So one way you can react to somebody that say something you disagree with, and you're like, oh, all interpretations are valid, right? Whatever you say is right. Everybody has a right to their opinion. What does it do to a conversation when you just say everybody has a right to their opinion?
It almost blows it off. Like, we all have our opinion. Let's move on.
Like there's nothing more to really discuss, right? Because
right,
everybody's
like
right and nobody's wrong. Okay.
Right.
The self-silencing, right? Sometimes, and I find myself doing this, right? Sometimes when you disagree with what's being said, but you don't feel like you're going to be listened to, you don't bother to speak up. Right? I did that a couple times in meetings this week. There's kind of a more neutral thing, right? Different people have different beliefs and therefore come up with different interpretations. Maybe not quite as all interpretations are equally valid, but kind of respecting different beliefs, but maybe you want to hear the other interpretations so that you can learn from them. Or maybe you agree. Awesome interpretation, I agree. Or it's, let's talk about something else. I don't even want to talk about it. So any of these things can happen in a conversation when you're discussing something. Does that seem right?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to talk about some other ways to approach conversation. Here's another kind of norm, like let's say for text study, right? If you agree with someone's interpretation, you might provide support. Oh yeah, you're right. I remember when I saw the same thing happen. Or if you disagree with them, then you might challenge them and say, I don't think that's right. I don't think the coronavirus is in people's imagination. I've seen people get sick, right? You're going to try and challenge and raise doubts. Neither of these lead to an ongoing conversation, right? If you support them and strengthen their argument, their interpretation, okay, you're done. And if you're arguing with them, then they're either going to listen to you or not, probably not, and you're done.
Ooh.
So norms for good reason, good learning. If you agree with a person, you can provide strength to support their interpretation, but also challenge them to try and get them to strengthen what they're saying. You're saying that you think that Abraham was a good father. Well, you know, he almost sacrificed his son. So do you really still think he's a good father? You know, explain to me how you still think he's a good father. You challenge them to try and come up with something. Another set of norms, okay, for disagreeing, okay, if you disagree, you can provide support to strengthen their interpretation and then challenge to help them strengthen it. So whether you agree or disagree, you still can give them, evidence that you agree with them or evidence that maybe you're going to challenge them a little bit. But this is what Chavruta is for, right? We're going to give you evidence to support you or to challenge you, but this is going to really create a dialogue and keep it going. Does this make sense? Yeah? Okay.
Yes, although in our day and age, well, of course, you can go back thousands of years, it generally isn't the purpose of disagreeing to help support the other person's interpretation.
I agree with you. And I think that's why it's hard and why it's really important, right? Today, you know, if you're on social media, the way that it's set up, you pretty much only see people's opinions who agree with you, right? You don't usually see people who have a different opinion than you. And either we're just arguing to hear ourselves talk and not to try and convince anybody else. But to have a respectful dialogue that includes disagreement in order to learn from each other is not It's not common today, but maybe the world would be a better place if we were able to have these kinds of discussions and challenge each other to learn from each other. Yeah. Kids are not used to doing this. It is it's a challenge to teach Chavruta study. Kids do not want to challenge each other. And we're going to see a little more with that. All right, which brings me to our next video. And I know I'm showing you a lot of videos tonight, and that's not usually what I do, but these are some really good, good approaches to Chavruta study. And this is going to show you a teacher who's doing Chavruta with her students.
Oh.
How might our Torah learning be different if we focus our efforts on building relationships of partnership with one another and with Torah? This question framed an 8-session learning experience in which a group of 7th grade Hebrew school students explored and practiced what it can mean to study Torah through the partnerships of Chavruta.
And this is our understanding of what Chavruta is. So we have one person over here in this corner, we have another person here in this corner, and then we have a text over here. It's not just 2 people studying together, it's actually 3 partners. And the third partner isn't a person, but the third partner is the text that we're studying.
Empowering students to bring this partnership to life for themselves requires tools, support, and opportunities for reflection and feedback.
Attentive silence.
At the heart of any Chavruta partnership lie the skills of listening and articulating.
Can you tell me more about what you mean?
Students practice these skills with the help of cue cards. Through scaffolded exercises, students became more self-aware and learned to share their own strengths and challenges.
It was hard, not necessarily just like being silent, but like knowing when to like butt in and say I agree or I disagree, and then knowing when to butt in and ask questions. At the end of each class, your partner also said something you were good at and something you needed to work on. So you listened to your partner, who's like your #1 source of information.
But the Chavruta partnership is not one shared only by 2 people, but also by a third partner, the Torah text. Learning how we may regard and draw upon sacred text as a full partner was new to students and opened up their learning to new possibilities.
The text is telling you something, so that makes it a partner, that you have to listen to what it's telling you. And just like you can't judge a book by its cover, you can't judge it, or you can't judge a person by their looks. You can't do that with the text either. Just by scanning it, you've really got to go in to find what you're looking for.
Students practice seeking to understand the text by exercising the tools of what's your evidence? And is there another way of understanding that?
Well, I put down that he's a mommy's boy. Like, what's your evidence? I don't understand. Well,
Now we must remain blessed.
you're kind of making assumptions by the way you're saying it. He was really mad.
He sort of is. He's trembling. He's violently trembling.
But he might be sad.
Sometimes students have to work hard to keep the Torah text in the conversation and to prevent its details and meanings from being overlooked. But this again is the power of partnership. When our Chavruta can challenge our ideas for the sake of greater understanding and learning.
I don't see what you're trying to say. Could you explain that in a different way?
Esau is trying to be a jerk to his father.
Where does
Because he didn't get that's my interpretation.
Where's your evidence?
Students reflected that the Torah came to life for them as partners.
Because they really challenged us to think about the text differently than I might have before.
You have to incorporate the text in your discussion with your partner and give evidence from the text. Even if I was saying something wrong, the text would prove me wrong.
Students get better at bringing to life a Chavruta partnership of 3, 2 people and the text, for the sake of seeking deeper understanding of self, of one another, and of Torah.
And this was the worksheet that we did that made us go in depth with the passage.
This shows how there are many different ways to interpret things.
Is there another way of understanding that?
Because we thought that was a really important part of why we're doing Chavruta. Person here, and the text where it makes the triangle.
And here's the attentive silence one. Well, because that's what I'm all about.
by the end, which is today, we're like, oh, I'm all final drafty because I learned a lot. And that just about wraps it up, folks.
For more information, please visit us on our website.
All right, what did you notice?
Well, there certainly was a high level of engagement.
Yep. You took my words. That's what I was going to say, engagement.
Is this a weekly or is this a weekly school?
I think that was a weekly school. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that the early childhood one we saw was either a day school or a preschool where the kids were there every day, but I think this is like an afternoon school. Chavruta can work in afternoon schools. It absolutely can work. What kind of things do the kids have to help them in doing the Chavruta?
Well, the cue cards.
The cue cards. What do you guys think of those?
I liked them.
What did you like about them?
Felt like they were hands-on and they fit their needs, and it was like guidance.
Kept helping.
I guess it is nice to be kind of given a set of questions and thoughts until they're integrated enough that you're kind of doing them on your own.
Good. Okay, it gives them practice and it helps them remember from one time to the next. What are these skills? How are we supposed to be talking to each other and listening to each other? Excellent. So here are some of the things that were on their cue cards. Okay, you can have attentive silence. You can say, tell me more about what you mean. Is there another way of understanding that? What's your evidence? I don't understand. Could you explain that in a different way or give an example? I wonder if what you mean is. Okay, so we're going to try this. Do you want to just stay together as a group?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to try this. I'm going to ask for this first part. We're going to look at a text from Sifrei Devarim. I'm going to ask, I'm going to show you one more thing. I think this is a nice another set of cues for meaningful conversations. I would love putting this in, I think this would be great to put up in the classroom on the wall. I agree with blank because, I disagree with blank because, I'd like to go back to what blank said about, I'd like to add, I noticed that, another example is, so what you're saying is, do you think that, could it also be that, why do you think that, where can I find that in the book, can you explain what you mean, can you tell me more, can you give an example? So this keeps, first of all, bringing you back to the text. Right? If I agree with you or I disagree with you, I got to show you in the text. If I don't understand what you're saying, I'm going to say, show me in the text where that comes from. So these are great cues. So this first time through, I think Aggie, I'm going to have you give an interpretation, and then Phil and Diane and Aaron are going to have to use some of these questions, these Chavruta questions, to come back to you. So Aggie, why don't you read us the first two paragraphs? Aggie, we can't hear you and you're not on mute. There we go. Now you're on mute. Hold on.
Can you hear me?
Okay. Yep.
I lost the picture. I don't have it.
Oh, okay. I will read it, but you're going to interpret it, okay? Can everybody else see it?
Yeah, do you want me to read it for you?
Yeah, go ahead, Diane, go ahead and read it.
God came from Sinai. When God appeared to give Torah to Israel, it is not to Israel alone that God appeared, but to all of the nations. First, God went to the children of Esau, and God asked them, will you accept the Torah? They asked, what is written in it? God answered, you shall not murder. They answered, the entire essence of our father is murder, as it is written, and the hands are the hands of Esau, and is with this that his father assured him, and by your sword shall you live.
All right, so Aggie, why don't you tell all of us what you think is going on so far in here?
As though you were children. So, an explanation or a retelling?
Why don't you do both?
Okay, so the Jewish people were surrounding the mountain, and the mountain shook with God's presence, and God wanted to give the Torah to the Jewish people, and the people were afraid.
Okay. So any of you, Diane or Phil, it's making me crazy that you say Stephanie. I have to change your name. It's just it's just annoying me. I keep wanting to say Stephanie. Not that I know who you are, but it's making me crazy. Wait, what happened?
I will have my own laptop soon.
I'm just changing it for you.
Okay.
All right. Sorry. All right. So looking now at these prompts, I want Phil and Diane and Aaron to ask Aggie some questions using these prompts.
Tell me more about what you mean by this, Aggie.
This mountain, and God came down on the mountain to talk to and to connect with the Jewish people, to get close to the Jewish people.
Aaron and Phil, you want to ask something else?
I don't understand what you mean by connect. Can you explain that a little more? Did you hear me?
Yes, I'm thinking. I'm like 3 hours of sleep last night, and I'm thinking. God wanted the Jewish people to hear God's voice and feel God's presence. And so there was a big wind, and there was fire, and there was smoke, and the mountain was shaking, and the people felt it.
All right, Aggie, I'm going to read you this text one more time so that you know what we're talking about, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. First, God went to the children of Esau, and God asked them, will you accept the Torah? They asked, what's in it? God answered, you shall not murder. They answered, the entire essence of our father is murder, as it is written in Genesis, and the hands of Esau. And is with that his father assured him, and by your sword you shall live.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Do you want to summarize it again?
Yes. So God wanted to give his most precious possession to the people. And so God went to different nations and offered the Torah. And so God went to one nation and asked them, would you like to have my Torah? And they wanted to know what was in it. And the Torah said, and God said, you shall not murder. And they said, well, we can't accept the Torah if we can't murder. That's what we like to do. So God went to the next group of people, and it seemed.
Hold on, we haven't gotten there yet, so hold on. All right, so Phil, what response would you have from these? What would you say to her?
Well, I guess I would ask, is there another way of understanding that?
Okay, Aggie?
Although I'm not quite sure what that question means.
Is there another way to interpret it, Aggie?
Which part?
Well, how about, I don't know, how about the words, and by your sword shall you live?
Well, it seems that this group of people used their sword to live. So whatever they wanted, they either fought for it or they killed for it. And God didn't, that's not the kind of people that God wanted to give the Torah to.
That God didn't want to give the Torah to them, or they didn't want the Torah?
They couldn't want the Torah anyhow because that's the way they lived. And God's law says you shall not kill. So they knew that that did not pertain to them. So they did not want the Torah.
Excellent.
See,
all right.
That's like the wicked child from
the
Haggadah.
Aaron, will you read us the next paragraph and then interpret it for us?
Sure. Which is that's the
Ammon. Ammon and Moab.
God then went to the children of Ammon, that one?
Mhm.
God then went to the children of Ammon and Moab and asked them, will you accept the Torah? They asked, what is written in it? God answered, you shall not commit adultery. They answered, Lord of the universe, illicit relations is our entire essence, as it is written, and the two daughters of Lot conceived by their father.
So will you interpret this for us? No, Aaron. Aaron's going to interpret it.
Yeah. So the way that I interpret this is God went to the children of Ammon and Moab and asked them if they accept the Torah. And, they wanted to know what was written in it. God said, don't commit adultery. And because they were used to a world where adultery was acceptable, they didn't understand that this is a new way of being that God wanted them to behave like. This is pretty, I just want to mention that this is pretty literal for like a passage. It's pretty.
There's not so much interpretation there. You're right.
Yeah, I mean,
you're right.
At least what I just did.
You're right. All right, Phil, Diane, Aggie, somebody ask a question.
What's your
Tell
evidence?
me more about what you mean.
All right, one at a time. Diane wants to know what your evidence is.
My evidence that of what? That that God didn't want them to commit adultery, or that they wanted to commit adultery so they didn't want to accept the Torah? Which evidence are you looking for?
Well, Chavruta wise, I'll let you choose.
Nice. I guess the evidence is that the evidence for the people not wanting to commit to this covenant, or not to accepting the Torah because they wanted to play around, is basically is them saying it. They answered that illicit relations is our entire essence. So that's the evidence.
Why is it their essence, Aaron? What the verse that they quote from Genesis, do you know what they're talking about?
Yeah, it's the I think it's the verse that about Lot, and he has daughters by two different women, right? Basically.
No, he has sex with both of his daughters.
Sorry, that's what I'm.
Right?
That's yeah.
Sodom and Gomorrah have just been destroyed. Lot thinks the entire world is gone, and his daughters think
that's
that.
right, and that so
right?
he sleeps with his.
They seduce him. They get him drunk and they seduce him because they think they need to repopulate the earth. And so they're saying, we were created, our people were created through adultery. Right? All right, Phil, what was your question for Aaron?
Well, I guess it was about what do you mean? What are you trying to say about all this?
Well, basically that the Israelites were reluctant to accept the Torah for a number of reasons, that they found it to be too burdensome to follow the commandments, and this was one of those reasons.
The Israelites?
Yeah, the Israelites. No.
No, not the. Sorry.
Moabites. Moabites.
The Moabites and the Ammonites. Good.
The Moabites and the Ammonites. Right. Sorry.
Okay. All right, Phil, read the next paragraph.
God then went and found the children of Ishmael and asked them, will you accept the Torah? They asked, what is written in it? God answered, you shall not steal. They answered, ruler of the universe, our father's entire essence is stealing. And he, Ishmael, shall be a wild man, his hand against all.
All right. Hey, you want to ask Phil a question?
I'm having a really hard time. I'm really sorry.
Okay.
I didn't hear. I'm like,
Okay. Actually, Phil, I didn't give you a chance to, I didn't give Phil a chance to interpret it. I just
you
had
know
him
what?
read it.
Can you,
That was my
can you
fault.
just say it again? I'm just like so like I'm
Okay.
shivering.
No, I apologize because I stopped Phil too early.
No, but
Phil,
that's-
tell us what you think this means.
Okay.
Well, one thing is that when they ask what is written in it, it means they're almost immediately rejecting it because it's coming from God. You'd think you would take it, kit and caboodle without hesitation. The you shall not steal, ruler of the universe, our Father's entire essence is stealing. I have to admit that I don't know enough about Ishmael to explain why they say their father's entire essence is stealing. Although I do have my phone here, and I did look up Genesis 19:36. I could look up 16:12. As for Ishmael, he shall be a wild man, his hand against all. I'm not quite sure what that has to do with stealing, although I could interpret the words as hand against all, meaning he's using it for force, and stealing is kind of a force. But I have to admit this, I'm not familiar with this for the reason here.
So, Aggie, do you have a question for Phil? If you want to pass, it's fine.
Yes, no, I do have a question. Why do you think that God asked these people if they would accept the Torah? Why did God offer these nations the Torah?
Well, I without like without a spoiler alert, if you take it, because I guess we end up, with the Torah, but without knowing anything before or after, you would think that, it's almost like a parent talking to a child and say, well, would you like a drink of water? Would you like something to eat? You're trying to be nice and be thoughtful and be caring, and so that's why, if you just take it at face value, God comes to the children of Ishmael and says, hey, you want the Torah? It's like you need a glass of water. So God is trying to be thoughtful and caring here.
All right, Diane, will you read us the last one and interpret it?
There was none among all the nations to whom God did not go and speak and knock at their door, asking if they would accept the Torah. All the kings of the earth will acknowledge you, O Lord, for they heard the words of your mouth. I might think they heard and accepted it. It is therefore written, and they did not do them the mitzvot. Is that it? Just so I know.
Yep. So
Okay.
how would you interpret that?
Sorry, I need the words back in front of me. Or that they did not believe them, and they didn't want to accept it.
Who's they?
The Jewish people. Maybe I'm reading it wrong.
There were none among all the nations to whom God did not go and speak and knock at their door, asking if they would accept the Torah. So who are all the nations? Based on the 3 paragraphs we just read before that, who are all the nations?
All the kings of the earth.
Yeah, right.
All the non-Jews, right? All the non-Jewish nations, right? There were 70 nations. God went to 69 of them.
Oh.
And what did God do?
Saved us for last.
Saved us for last. Okay, so here's a big question. Why? Why did God go to every other nation in the world before us and offer the Torah to them?
So the question is, did the Jewish people hear the question of that was offered to all the other nations?
Yeah, and we don't have that here. I didn't include that in this text, but yes. After this, God goes to the Jewish people and says, will you accept my Torah? And the Israelites say, Naaseh v'nishma, which means we will do and we will listen. You want to give us Torah? We'll take it. And then afterwards you can explain. They don't ask what's in it. That's the end of this midrash.
Right. So my understanding always was that when the Jewish people heard the answers of the other people, the Jewish people understood that this was God and that God has a treasure, and that of course they would take the treasure without knowing what it was, because it was God. It wasn't about the laws. It was about the fact that it was about God.
That's really interesting. So your assumption was that the Israelites knew that God had offered it to everybody else first and heard the whole conversation and then said yes? In my head, and I'm not saying you're wrong, in my head I had always imagined that they didn't know, no group knew what came before them. These were separate conversations between God and each of these nations. If that's so, then the Israelites would have known a lot about what was in the Torah before they said yes. Right? Because they would have heard all these things from other nations.
Not necessarily. I don't know. I don't remember how I learned it, but I learned this in Cheder in Hungary. My understanding of that is that the Jewish people knew that God went everywhere, but they also knew that it was God. And so there was no question.
How would you feel if that was you? If you knew that somebody offered a present to every other nation on earth before you, and nobody else wanted it and then offered it to you, how would you feel?
I think it's happened in my life where other people were offered something that I knew was a treasure, and they didn't seem to catch on. It wasn't their value or it wasn't their desire, and I grabbed.
So it didn't bother you to be the last one asked?
No, because maybe beyond me there are other people to ask too. No.
One thing that this somewhat reminds me of the story of the plagues, because it says that God hardened Pharaoh's heart, and after each plague there certainly was the opportunity for the Pharaoh to change his mind, and yet I don't know, it seems to God must have known that all the other nations were going to turn it down, and yet God goes to all of these nations before the Israelites and goes through all this, but God must have known that they weren't going to accept it, and so you could kind of question at least a little bit the sincerity of the offer, just like supposedly God was trying to get Pharaoh to have a different attitude, and yet somehow, I don't know, God is to blame because it says God hardened Pharaoh's heart. I'm trying to find a connection here with all that. Maybe it's not there.
No, it's really interesting. Aaron, you were shaking your head yes. Tell us what you're thinking.
I don't. I mean, I don't know. Conceptually, this is very hard for me. The idea that God offered the Torah to all these nations, and they all turned him down because they wanted to be sinners of some kind of way that God didn't like, and that the Jews were the only ones that said, oh, I'll bear the burden of this covenant, and I'll play by all your rules, and so on. I think that like part of this is like, isn't it the Israelites who witnessed all these miracles? And these other these other folks, may have or may not have known about these miracles that the Israelites witnessed God do for them? I mean, like, or am I in a different? I mean, this is before, obviously. No, this is with Moses, right?
Yeah.
So this is after a lot of this stuff has happened.
Yep.
So if they don't accept the Torah, they're like kind of a little bit,
ungrateful,
out of reality. I mean, because they just were saved.
Okay, so let me turn this question on the head. The rabbis came up with this story, right? So if this is a parable and the rabbis are giving this story, what is it they're trying to explain? Why would the rabbis have wanted to make it look like every other nation in the world did not want the Torah, and we took it?
Because the other nations didn't think. They don't have values. I think the point, I mean, for me, that's how I understand it, that we understood that we have a higher purpose, and that you have to have values, and you have to have a sense of respect for life, and that the other nations were not in that place.
So that meant the Israelites, why should they get the Torah?
We have the saying about how we are the children of priests, or, I think that there is an attitude that we are the chosen, and that word chosen is that we chose ourselves, but there is something about that.
Excellent.
What?
That's excellent. That's really good.
I think the Rebbeim, did this sort of thing in order to show students and show the people of Israel basically that they bear a great responsibility.
Okay, great responsibility, but also the Jews deserve the Torah, right? Nobody else deserved it because everybody else was ungrateful and wanted to know what was in it first, right? I'm not going to take the present unless I know what's in it. The Jews earned it because they were the ones who said, we'll take it.
Well,
right?
No, more than that. It's more than that. It's God. It's their recognition that it's not the Torah, it's God. It's God's Torah. So the Jews recognize that there's something bigger beyond them that will be connected to them as a result of them choosing.
Good. All right, we're going to look at one more midrash in a few minutes to see the other side of this coin. Any other comments about it? Okay. Can you see doing what we just did? Asking students to use attentive silence, tell me more what you mean. Is there another way of understanding that? Could you see having students study a text? Maybe, as Aaron said, one with more interpretations than this, but could you see them using this to discuss a text?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Some more approaches you can use. Okay. The idea is that when you offer an interpretation, right, you're going to give your interpretation with evidence and then listen to and reply to your colleagues' questions. That's sort of what we were basically just doing. But your role as a chavruta, this we haven't talked about so much, but your role as a chavruta is to help your chavruta learn. It's not just for you to learn, you're helping your chavruta learn. So you want to ask them clarifying questions, okay? Am I understanding that you are reading this part of the text to mean X? Am I understanding that you read the text to mean that the Israelites deserve to get the Torah? Right? Or you said the Israelites deserve to get the Torah. Can you tell me more about what you mean by that? Or what in the text made you say that the Israelites deserve to get the Torah? Okay? These are questions that you can ask that gets your chavruta to say what is in the text that that made them say what they say. You're also going to support your chavruta, right? You want to support what they're saying, right? I see additional textual evidence to what you said, right? I think you're right because it says that the Israelites said, Na'aseh v'nishma. We will do and we will listen. We will, yeah. Or your interpretation gives me a better understanding of this part of the story. Or when you say that when it says X, this reinforces your point. So these are ways that you're going to support what your Chavruta says. They say something and you say, yeah, I really think you're right because I see this here in the text. Okay, so one thing we said is you could ask them questions to help them learn more. Second thing you can do is to support them and show them why you're supporting them. And then the third, and this is the hardest one today to do, is to challenge them, right? And I did this a little bit with you guys, right? If the text says that, the two daughters of Lot conceived by their father, then what is that talking about? How does that have to do with adultery? What is that about, right? Or how do you account for, or why do you say that? How does that fit with this part of the text? Or I'm having a tough time with that interpretation because it assumes these things, right? So to challenge your chavruta, not to say you're wrong, not to say you're stupid, not to say you don't know what you're talking about, but to say, I don't see where what you're saying fits in with this text. Can you explain it to me more? Is going to make the person really dig deeper to understand it. And you may challenge your partner even if you agree with them. You may decide to challenge them just to get them to dig deeper and to think harder. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Think about if you were scientists, right? Scientist comes up with a new vaccine for corona, right? His partners are going to do everything that they can to poke any possible holes in the theory because they want to make sure that what the guy has is right. Or the girl. Sorry, don't mean to be sexist here. But if they don't ask all the possible questions, then they may miss something. Right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
You have to look at it from all different angles.
Absolutely. All right, so we're going to try this one more time. This is the other text I wanted to take a look at. Okay? One of you is going to offer an interpretation of what the story is about and give evidence. Okay? Give evidence for what you're saying. And the rest of us are going to listen and we're going to reply with questions. Okay? Our questions could be asking clarifying questions. It could be supporting what they're saying and saying, oh yeah, I agree with you because I see that that's in this text here. Or it could be challenging them, right? I'm not sure I understand why that. I think that this means something else and trying to challenge them. Make sense?
Yes.
So this is a whole nother interpretation of what happened at Sinai. Okay? I'm going to make you guys all small so I can see the text. All right. I'm going to read them and then I'm going to ask each of you. Let's see. Aggie, you're going to interpret this first one. The Gemara cites additional interpretations on the topic of revelation at Sinai. The Torah says, and Moses brought forth the people out of the camp to meet God, and they stood at the lowermost part of the mountain. And the Hebrew is, just so you know, tachtit hahar. Tachat means under. So they stood under the mountain. Tachtit hahar. So Aggie, what would you say this is about? What do you think it means and why?
Maybe it's symbolic of how they felt. They were slaves from Egypt, and now they're going to meet God, who's bigger than a king. Maybe they were. This is about low self-esteem. It's about acting out how they feel. They were going to be under the mountain, so they won't even be seen.
Excellent. Okay. Can somebody ask a question? Either to a clarifying question or give support from a different part of the text or to challenge what Aggie said?
Well, I would ask if you could visualize, because I have a certain image that there's something important about standing at the lowermost part of the mount. And
So what's
I
your
thought
question?
maybe, Well, the question is, what do you, why do they stand at the lowermost part of the mount?
So
Aggie?
I thought I answered that question.
So explain more.
I think that they stood at the lowest part because that's how they felt. They had been for generations slaves. Their opinions never counted. Their ability didn't count. All they were worth was just to work. And so to show themselves or to appear in a bigger place didn't make sense. They never did that in Egypt. They were always the lowest on the ladder of peoplehood. And so they were under the mountain where maybe they're not seen and maybe they're not heard.
Okay, thank you.
So Diane or Aaron, can you either textually support what she said or challenge what she said based on the text?
I agree with you, Aggie. Excuse me. I agree with you, Aggie, about why they stood so low. That they wanted to be below of where they were receiving the Torah.
So the Torah was high and they were low.
Right. And they were lower. And I agree with that.
Okay. All right. I'm going to read the second one and I want Aaron to summarize it. Explain what it means. Rabbi Avdimi ben Chama bar Chassa said, the Jewish people actually stood beneath the mountain. And the verse teaches that the Holy One, blessed be he, overturned the mountain above the Jews like a bowl and said to them, if you accept the Torah, excellent. And if not, there will be your burial. What do you think that's saying, Aaron?
Oh, it's deep. Overturn the mountain above the Jews like a bowl. I think that what he means is that, God protected and sheltered the Jewish people and saved them from the Egyptians and did all this stuff. And basically, needed God and needed this is hard because I'm not sure exactly what all of it means. Like I don't know what the stood beneath the mountain instead of, like, does that just mean that they were on the bottom of the mountain, or does that mean that they were under the mountain? Like, what is he? Well, I don't know what he means by that, but I think what he basically means is that God gave the Jewish people very little choice.
Okay,
and that.
What's your evidence for that?
My evidence in this text, or my evidence
in this text right here?
I mean, I don't know.
Can somebody help Aaron? Because I think he's absolutely on the right track. So can somebody find evidence for the fact that God was not giving the Israelites a choice about whether or not to take the Torah?
Well, it says if you accept the Torah, excellent, and if not, there will be your burial.
Okay? God is holding up the mountain above their heads.
That's how the Egyptians
bowl. And God says, will you take my Torah? Otherwise, I'm going to drop this on your heads and you'll be buried here.
That's how the Egyptians spoke to the Jews in Egypt. They threatened them and they scared them, and they didn't give them a choice. And so God offers and then says, okay, I'm offering you, but if you don't do it, I'll kill you. So of course they'll take it. I mean, God was talking to a group of people who had no ability to make decisions or to.
So you're supporting Aaron by saying that it matches the experience they had had in Egypt. This threat.
Well, they just left Egypt, yes.
Okay, excellent.
If you work with children, you have to talk to them like children. If you work with adults, you have to talk to them like adults. And God was speaking their language.
Good. All right. Third text. Diane, you're going to interpret this one.
Okay.
Rav Acha Bar Yaakov said, from here there is a substantial caveat to the obligation to fulfill the Torah. The Jewish people can claim that they were coerced into accepting the Torah, and it is therefore not binding.
They pretty much were, what's the word I want to use, swindled. Like they were like, had to take the Torah or else. And if they didn't accept it, then it was like, you have to have this agreement. And it's like that with students. You convince students to follow your school rules or your classroom rules or else. And to me, it's the same idea sometimes, not always.
But according to this, does that mean we have to follow the Torah or no?
No, I don't think so.
Because?
It just said you're obligated to fulfill the Torah, but doesn't mean that you have to follow all of it, but you can like look at it and take it for what you think it means.
But why? How does that tie back to the way the Torah was given? Why is it not binding?
Because of the sentence where it says the Jewish people can claim that they were coerced into accepting the Torah.
Okay. If I
Right
put a gun to your head and ask you to sign a contract, are you going to be obligated to go along with that contract after you've signed it?
No,
You're gonna hold
I
up
just
in
have
court?
I just have to sign that paper, but that's it. Doesn't mean I'm going to follow through. Just like I sign on that I'm doing a good job with my driver's license and I'm going to follow the rules and the laws, but I might not actually follow them.
Okay. Does anybody have a support or contradicting evidence for Diane?
Well, I'm trying to understand. I mean, according to this, which is not the Torah itself, but how come it's not, the offer, so to speak, is not structured in the same way that the offer apparently was made to all the other nations of the world? You don't see this nice, kind of kindly, simply stated offer, would you like my Torah? Yes or no kind of a thing. It's a threat. And certainly the other 69 nations weren't threatened to take it. So I'm having a tough time with that.
Okay, so that's an excellent question. So the first text we looked at when God went to all the nations, that was from a commentary on the book of Devarim, of Deuteronomy. This is from the Talmud. So these are totally separate stories, totally separate discussions. Okay? One of them, God just offered the Torah to everybody. We were last, we took it. This one, God offers the Torah, but threatens us. If you don't take it, you're going to die. And then we say, oh yeah, okay, we'll take it. Na'aseh v'nishma. All right. So let's get to the end of it, I think. Phil, it's your turn to interpret this one, right?
Yes.
Okay. Rava said, even so, they accepted it willingly in the time of Achashverosh. As it is written, the Jews ordained and took upon them and upon their seed and upon all such as joined themselves unto them. And he taught the Jews ordained what they had already taken upon themselves, though through coercion at Sinai. What do you think it means?
Well, I'm trying to, I see something out of the military and I see something out of strict parents, that when they say eat your vegetables and, grab you by the ear and tell you, go to your room if you don't eat your vegetables. So then you're choking them down. But later you come to understand how it's important for you to eat your vegetables. And that's an independent and authentic understanding. So I'm going to interpret it as saying that, yeah, at the time they were coerced into accepting it, but later they had their own authentic understanding and or realization, and then they came to embrace it.
Where's your textual evidence? When did they come to accept it? When
Well,
in history?
apparently they accepted it at the time of Achashverosh. And that, of course, was much later. And it says the Jews ordained and took upon them. And so they're embracing it, they're accepting it now, and upon their seed and upon all such as joined themselves onto them. So that's how I interpret it.
Anybody support or challenge Phil based on textual evidence?
Can you say what you said again, Phil?
Well, my general interpretation is that, as you stated, Aggie, they're not. Your interpretation that your explanation that they weren't ready after all those years of servitude to really have a grasp of what it was that was being offered to them. So, you know, again, like a child who doesn't understand the value of spinach or broccoli, all right, your parent sort of forces you to eat them because the parent knows it's good for you. But then later, in the time of Achashverosh, they did understand it, and then they embraced it. And as I said, later in life, you know, people will then eat things that they never ate before because they didn't like them as kids, or they have come to understand the value of things like all the different fruits and vegetables. So then they're willing to make an adult and independent and authentic decision to accept that for themselves.
So can anybody support or challenge that based on the text?
I have a totally different thought.
Okay.
It's really rude and really sly and mean, but so what if God went to all the people and offered it, knowing full well, I mean, that's how I learned it, knowing full well that nobody would accept it. And the Jewish people wouldn't have accepted it either. All of a sudden it's gone.
No, okay, very good. Except then he brought them to Sinai.
Wait. Okay, so now I remember. But the story is that we are really we are a nation of priests, and God has seen in God's wisdom that there needs to be a light onto the nations, and there needs to be a priestly nation to send out the wisdom and the light and whatever you want to call it. And so either we were saved for last or we were chosen. It's not relevant to me, but the fact is that God needed us as much as ultimately we needed God. And so it was like a perfect partnership. You know, we who were lost needed to be found, and we needed to be the one to say, look, there is a God and there is meaning in this world.
Beautiful, Aggie. Beautiful. So we can take these two stories and put them together. The Jewish people, I would say, have always been a bit uncomfortable about this idea of chosenness, right? What's so special about us? Why are we the chosen ones? This is a little bit uncomfortable. We're talking to the rest of the world that we're the chosen ones.
I think that the only reason we feel, and I'm making a judgment and I don't know, I am from the world of the Holocaust. That's where my parents are from, my whole family. And to be the chosen one, the one to be standing out is too scary and it's terrifying. And so to be chosen remains like an arrogance. It remains a terrible thing because we have been chosen to be murdered.
Okay.
So maybe we don't want to be chosen.
A third expression, the explanation of the chosenness, right? What Tevye said. Can you choose somebody else this time?
Yeah, for once.
Right?
Yeah.
You've chosen us enough for enough suffering. But if we're uncomfortable with this idea of chosenness, on the one hand, we can say, God didn't really choose us. We were the last choice. God wanted to give it to everybody else. Nobody else wanted it. So God, we were chosen last. So we were not saying we're better than anybody else. The other side of the coin says, yeah, we were chosen. God really wanted us. But it's not that we were so much better than everybody else and we said, yes, absolutely. We said yes because there was a mountain over our heads and we were scared. Either way, we somehow now don't look superior to everybody else. As a way to feel more comfortable maybe with this idea of chosenness. But ultimately, we are still responsible for these mitzvot, even if we were threatened to take them, because in the time of Purim, after God saved us from Haman, the Jews said, oh, we get it now. We accept God, we accept the Torah, and we accept it for all the generations after us. Phil, you were going to say something.
Well, okay, so you explain it that, in fact, in a certain sense, we weren't really given the choice like every other nation. We were kind of forced into it. You know, the idea of chosenness has been for a long time a source of at least some kind of mild anti-Semitism or questioning, oh, you're the chosen people. I get that from friends, even in a goofing kind of way. And so, I mean, this sense of chosenness that we weren't given. I mean, I don't know that people will accept the idea that, well, if you said to them, well, we weren't really chosen, it was forced on us. I don't know if that makes people feel better about this notion that somehow Jews are the chosen people.
I'm not sure what's making anybody else feel better. It might make us feel better.
By the way, it just hit me. Have you ever met a Jew who says, I'm part of the chosen people or anything like that?
Oh, yeah. Chabad loves that. The Jews are special. We're more special than anybody. Chabad loves that. They're all over that. But other than Chabad, no. Yeah, Chabad is all over that. So obviously the reason I brought these three texts was because Shavuot is next week. So I figured that these were appropriate things for us to be thinking about and studying. So I hope they're helpful. But I also think this was a really great, deep conversation. And Erin, you said that the text we were looking at, the second one, was very straightforward. There wasn't so much to interpret. But you see that once we put the three of them together, there was a lot of depth.
Much more robust.
Yeah. So there was a method to my madness. All right, we are coming to an end. Hold on, I need to find what I need. So like I did last time for your note card reflection, the one that you are giving to me, I'm going to put that in the chat, and it's a little Google form for you to fill out. So I just put that in the chat.
Pulling it up now.
Okay. And our questions are very much like what they've been before, right? A moment or two you'd like to hold on to, anything you'd like me to consider in planning our next session, any lingering questions. But for your own journal, right? What did you learn from today, from doing the Chavruta? Is there an approach you like best out of the three? Did you learn anything that'll impact your teaching, your practice? Our next session based on the Zoom, or based on the doodle poll, sorry, is Wednesday, June 10th. So my sister's birthday. So June 10th will be our next date. I will also send that to you in an email so you have it, but June 10th will be our next one. So you can we got 10 minutes, you can take some time to do the journaling for yourself and the note card for me. Are there any other questions or comments you want to say out loud as you start writing?
So how do we do the note card reflection to you?
So if you look in the chat, there's a link, and if you paste that link into
If I click on it?
if you click on it, yeah. Actually, if you click on it, it should send you the form.
Okay.
Oh, where is that?
Aaron, why did you type your name in the chat?
Because I thought that I was doing that. I thought I was filling it out on the chat. That's how tired I am.
You're supposed to send something in the chat, no?
I can't click on it. I have to copy
It's
and
not
paste the
clickable?
URL.
All right.
Mine clicked, mine switched right away.
Yeah, it depends if you have the older or newer Zoom. That's why.
Now it's on there.
So my problem is that your card is in front of everything. I can't see things.
All right, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen then. All right, now you should be able to get to the chat.
Okay. So if I go to the chat.
Then the thing that says from me to everyone, the second one, not the one that's at 8:20, that's the form you want to click on.
Which one?
The one that says forms GLE/WV, that one?
I don't have that.
Do you have the chat box?
Oh, I see. Yeah, I see forms. So that's the one we should click on?
Yep.
Okay.
Phil, do you see it?
Yes, except that for some reason it's not. Do I have to highlight the whole thing?
You may have to highlight it and paste it into your web browser.
So it's turning into a giant sheet. And then how do I send it to you? Oh, submit. I see it. Okay.
Phil, do you want me to email it to you, Phil?
I guess so. I don't know where I've got it highlighted, which I couldn't even do last week. But where am I pasting it though?
You'd have to paste it into a browser.
Yeah. Well,
I just emailed it to you.
All right.
So you can do it from there.
Yeah, I'll do it later then.
All right, but also just before you go, write down the journal prompts, because the journal is for you to write those 2 questions.
Whoops. Oh, shoot. I pressed the button by mistake, and I don't know where it went.
All right, I'm going to email it to you too, okay?
Like it's a bad day. I'm so fried.
Okay.
So what happened here? Wait, I can go back. It's okay. I'll do it. I just want to get it done.
You can go back? Okay.
Yeah, I just want to get it done. Okay, but, oh, here it is. Okay. It had it and then it went away again.
Because I shared, sorry.
What happened?
Now try.
Thank you, Sippy.
By the way, in August, I'm going to be teaching a beginner's class on how to teach online and all the Zoom tricks and everything. You guys will.
You think it'll help if I do that?
I think Aggie and Phil, you might want to sign up for that one.
Hey, I've come a long way, Sippy.
You have, but there's going to be an intermediate level class that Yael Gala is going to teach. So that'll be good for you.
No, it'd be good for me. I'm very proud of myself, but I'd like to take it. I would.
You know what? My father and my father-in-law have both figured out how to get on Zoom.
Yeah.
Which, like, that in itself impresses me.
Yeah, I think it's my in-laws. We've been keeping in touch with them too.
Yeah.
So
it's really nice, especially with my dad being out of state and all by himself. It's very nice.
Yeah, that is nice.
Right. So do you guys write down the journal reflection questions?
Yes.
Every time I go to the next question, it jumps away.
Right. Aggie, I'm just going to email it to you, and as soon as you log out of here, then you can do it on your email, okay?
Be well, everybody. Stay healthy and safe.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. Take
Thank
care.
you for a nice evening.
Thank
you very much. Write down the date for our next one, okay?
June 10th, day after my dad's birthday. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Lee Throat.
Is that at 7 o'clock?
6:30.
6:30?
Yep. And Aggie, I just sent it to you, okay?
No, my God. Okay, here it is. So is this going to stay and
I'm gonna have you get off Zoom. I'm gonna end the meeting, and that way it should work for you.
Okay.
All right. If you have questions, call me.
Oh, you. Oh boy.